Welcome everyone to the Ahead of the Curve information session. My name is Jess. I'm the creative producer for the Ahead of the Curve program. Today we'll be giving you a bit of information about the Ahead of the Curve commissions ahead of the submission date. Before we begin, I'll introduce the MAV team. So joining us today is James McKinnon, who is the creative producer for Diasporas Festival. And James will be giving us a little bit of information about the festival later on. Also joining us is Amarantha Robinson, Sneha Varma, and Dashani Bernhardt, who will be also providing a bit of support for tonight's information session. So before I get started with the presentation, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping things. So you are more than welcome to keep the Zoom in speaker view. This information session will be recorded, so you'll be able to access the video after tonight's information session. Feel free to keep your video off and please keep your mics off during the presentation. Feel free to put any questions in the chat during the presentation, or you can wait until the end of the session to ask questions. All questions in the chat will be answered at the end of the session. There'll be an open questions session at the end of the presentation. So I'll just get the presentation going now. Okay, so we're going to start by giving everyone a bit of an overview of the program. So the Head of the Curve commissions is for young emerging artists of colour living around Melbourne to create new digital artworks that respond to social challenges, including COVID-19. These commissions will empower young storytellers, makers and creators within our diverse communities to create works that show their strength and resilience in the face of adversity, explore health and well-being, and draw from their lived experiences. As well as financial support, MAV can offer professional and creative development, workshops and mentoring and production and administrative assistance. The new digital works created in Ahead of the Curve will be presented online as part of Diasporas Festival in September 2022. So there are 3 tiers that you can apply for. So the first one being Empower. This is for solo new works of $750. This is for creatives who can produce their work alone and do not need any additional materials, equipment, expertise, or technical support. The second tier is Develop. This is for collaborative new works of up to $3,000. This is for development of new works that involve at least 2 creatives and or require additional materials, equipment, expertise, or technical support. And the final tier is Respond. This is for project response works of up to $7,000. This is for community groups, cultural and enterprises, or artist collectives to develop works involving community groups or members. So to be eligible to apply for the Head of the Curve commissions, applicants must self-identify as First Nations, a person of colour, or culturally and linguistically diverse, be aged between 15 to 35 years old. Applicants do not need to identify as an artist or creative, but the proposal must have a creative outcome. Applicants must live in Victoria with a current Victorian address, intend for the project to be developed in Victoria, and be able to provide some links, 1 or 2 links of examples of recent solo or collaborative work. So some key dates for submissions is, so submissions are currently open at the moment, and with the current lockdown extension, we've actually extended the submission deadline to the 1st of September 2021. We acknowledge that this time is very difficult for a lot of creatives at the moment, and so we want to give everyone enough time to be able to really work on their projects and submit in without the stress of what's going on at the moment. So the Head of the Curve commissions will be announced on the 18th of September 2021. The creative delivery period is from the 1st of October to the 20th of December 2021. Workshops and mentoring sessions will occur from the 15th of October to the 31st of March. And Diasporas Festival will be happening in September 2022. So it's very important for your application to respond to one or more of the provocations. So these are exploring the themes of strength and vulnerability, sharing narratives of adversity and resilience, and creating sanctuary through shared experience. So I'm just going to go over the submission form briefly now. We'll be adding the link to the submission form in the chat function. It begins with basic contact information, name, email address, and contact number, how you identify culturally. So this can be either if you identify as a First Nations person, person of color, or culturally and linguistically diverse, or you can add your specific ethnicity or race. A short biography about you, a project description of up to 100 words, so make sure that it's very succinct, how your audience, who your audience is for this project and who will benefit from this project. So if you've got one or more target audiences, make sure to include that in there. How does your project respond to the provocation? So make sure you directly link your project description back to one of the provocations that I mentioned earlier. Which tiered commission you're applying for. So you can only apply for one per project, so make sure you tick one. Why is your project important to you? So this is where you can get a little bit more personal and bring in your lived experience or the lived experience of your collective or group of artists. What are 3 things you hope to learn or develop from this creative proposal? So this can be anything from something practical like building your skills as an artist, or networking opportunities, or mentoring, or professional development, or it can be a bit more about your creative expression, or working with a specific community. So it's really up to you. So for the submission form, you're required to upload a budget plan and a project timeline. We have actually included a budget template for you if you wish to use that. So that is on the submissions page on our MAV website. We can also add that into the chat function later on, and I'll be going over that briefly in the next slide. So for the project timeline, this is, key dates, key tasks for your project. And if you have any questions about your budget plan or your project timeline ahead of the submission date, you're more than welcome to email or call me. I have my contact information in the final slide. You can also add it in the chat function later on. And sorry, my head is in the way of this last question, but that is 2 URL links for, sorry, I'm just trying to get out of the way a little bit, of examples of past work. So this can be anything from documentation of past events that you've produced, or past work that you've presented, social media profiles or articles where you or your work have been mentioned, or a website or a video. If you have more than 1 or 2 examples, I would recommend putting them in a Dropbox link or a Google Drive, and then adding that link in there. So this is the budget template that we've included in there, which is quite brief, but you're more than welcome to edit it as you please. So depending on your project, you can sort of include or exclude whatever you like. And remember, if you have any questions about what to include or exclude in your budget, you're more than welcome to give me a call and we can chat about it ahead of the submission deadline. So now James is going to talk a little bit about the Diasporas Festival and how it's linked to the Ahead of the Curve commissions.
Good evening, everybody. I'm James. I'm the creative producer of the Diasporas commission. Cool. So Diasporas is a new platform that MAV has created for and with diverse creatives, with an intent to increase visibility, participation, and equity in the arts towards a new arts ecology. So the Diasporas Festival is more than a festival. It's a platform that will hold space for the interrogation and development of arts and cultural practices with diverse artists and communities in mind. So this year, Diasporas is launching with the Diasporas Commissions, which are open now and will close on September 1st. That deadline has also been extended. So you can check out the MAV website for more information about the Diasporas Commissions. They're significantly bigger commissions worth $10,000, $25,000 and $50,000 respectively. And you can check out the information sessions that we ran a couple of weeks ago for the commissions on the MAV website. Very similar to Ahead of the Curve, there's a provocation that you need to respond to. And the application process is a little bit more detailed given the size of the commissions. So both the Diaspora Commissions and the Ahead of the Curve Commissions will form part of the Diasporas Festival programming in 2022. And if you have any questions on Diasporas, on the Diaspora Commissions, you can shoot me an email and I'll put that in the chat later on. Cool. So I think we're going to jump through to some, me and Jess are going to jump through to some frequently asked questions. Cool. So can I receive support putting together my application and budget? Jess.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, you're more than welcome to call me or email me if you have any questions about your application or budget, and we can discuss that ahead of the submission deadline.
Cool. Well, for the, what art forms are eligible for funding, Jess?
So we don't have any restrictions on art forms. It has to just have a creative outcome. So that can really be, it's open to anything.
Cool. I have a project already in development. Can I apply for funding?
Yes, you can.
Cool. If I already have secured other sources of funding, can I still apply for this?
Yes, you can.
For the Ahead of the Curve commissions, are letters of support necessary?
You don't necessarily need a letter of support. It's not in the submission form, but if you do have one, if you want to make your application stronger, you're more than welcome to add it to the one of the links that you provide.
And can people submit an application for multiple tiers of funding?
Yes, you can, but they have to be separate projects per tier.
Yeah, and that's the same thing for the Diasporas commissions as well. Do all artists have to be based in Victoria?
No, so if you are part of an artist group or a collective, artists can be based around the country or overseas, but the lead artist, the person applying, needs to be based in Victoria with a Victorian address.
Cool. What kind of support will people receive for these digital outcomes?
This is really dependent on each individual project, but we provide administrative support, support for mentoring and professional development opportunities. There will be opportunities to do workshops in upskilling and like certain communications, digital marketing and tech sort of type of workshops. We also supply a bit of support around production. So it's really dependent on the project.
And what type of support material should be added?
So that can include any sort of digital documentation. So if you've had a creative outcome, public outcome before, and it's been documented by, with video on social media or for photography, I would recommend adding in those type of support material. You can also add in a social media page, your artist website, any articles that you might have been mentioned in. It can really be anything that will give strength to your application.
Cool.
All right, so now we are opening up for some questions that people might have. I've included my email and phone number there in the slide. I'll also add it to the chat function.
Jess, there are some questions in the chat. So from Kelly, should each member of a group applying together for a collaborative project complete the budget, or can we make one single budget for the entire group?
You can make one single budget for the entire group. If you're all working on the same project, I would recommend just doing one budget.
Helen says, if I chose the type of tier to confirm, I need to pay the X amount of money. So there's no fee. So whatever tier you're applying to, that's the amount of money that you will receive if you are successful. If that makes sense. There's a question from Jessica. The project we are making is a collaboration by creatives from Victoria who are currently affected by the travel ban. Our lead project manager has a Victorian address but is unable to travel back to Victoria due to the current travel ban. Are we able to apply?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we do take into consideration the current lockdown restrictions, and that's totally okay.
And Michael says, what percent of the funding can go towards artist fee?
I would recommend going to a peak body depending on what art form. So for visual arts, an example is NABA, and looking at their artist fees and really going by your peak body for your art form.
Sharam has a question that we just kind of missed. Does the outcome have to be completed by the 20th of December? Yeah.
Yeah, between October to the 20th of December.
From Jessica, will the grant be paid before the project commences or after it has finished?
It will be paid before,
yep.
Especially if you require funds to be able to develop your project.
Cheryl, on your question, can I propose one project for Ahead of the Curve and another one for Diasporas? You can, yes, as long as they're different projects. And they're both being assessed independently. So that won't affect, there won't be any, that'll be fine. Karen asks, I want to apply to the Empower solo work tier. If it's a digital piece, do they still have to submit a budget?
Yes, all projects need to submit a budget and a project timeline.
And how detailed does that budget have to be from Lena?
It really depends on your project. So if you want to talk more about it, I would recommend emailing me or giving me a call, and we could talk in more detail about your specific project. But I would recommend with budgets, adding in all types of expenses. So thinking in a very detailed way.
From Jasper, would a short film count as a piece of art for AOTC? And if so, can I submit a written draft of the script as part of the submission? If yes, in what section of the application should I put it?
So yes, film is an art form that can be put on a digital platform. So it's really any art form that can work in a digital, on a website. So that's really open to almost anything. So yes, film definitely. And you can add the script, if you like, to one of the links for your support material.
Cool. Shram, sorry, it's moving fast. Shram asks again, can I collaborate with a sound artist and musicians overseas? Yeah. Aminata asks, could you clarify the difference between the $3,000 and $7,000 tiers? Maybe give an example of a project.
The $7,000 tier is really for established collectives, artist groups and social enterprises, or if you are working with a big group of artists, I would recommend applying for that tier. I think that is the key difference. If your project cannot happen without a collective of people, then, you know, 2 or more people, then I would recommend going for that final tier.
Can we submit a project which takes the format of a series of workshops lasting several days? From Jessica.
Yes, if those workshops can be online, can be done online. Something to note is that, yeah, the digital outcomes can be interactive as well. So that's something to consider.
From Quinn, does the budget need to be within the AOTC fund? Budget needs, yeah, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah, also make sure you include any other types of funding that you are receiving if you were successful with another grant or getting money from somewhere else to support your project further. Make sure you include that in the budget as well.
If lockdowns continue and they affect timelines, do artists just update as things happen?
Yes, and we will also be in constant communication with everyone about that.
Cool. Is there a limit on the number of projects or applications that can be submitted? From Machar?
No, there isn't a limit. It's just you can't apply with the same project for multiple tiers. So you can apply for all tiers, they just have to be different projects.
Cool. I think I have found I think I've read out every question. Oh no, here we go. What if the total of our budget does not match the amount of grant for the tier?
Does that mean it's less or more?
I think the thing there is that we'll only be funding the tiers amounts that we're giving. So your budget should either reach that or be held within that tier amount. So get as close as you can to that tier amount.
Yeah.
Helen asks, can mental health awareness be a unique theme within the design?
Yes, of course.
Shram asks, could their sole income be the amount from the commission? I assume they mean for like paying artist fees, and that being entirely used in the commission. Is that correct?
I guess that would be okay if you do have support, some other financial support to develop your project. It's really dependent on an individual project. But if you have any questions about that, I would suggest getting in touch with me.
Jessica asks a follow-up from their previous question. If the budget is less than the tier amount, will we only receive how much we need according to the budget?
I'm not too sure on that one. I can get back to you, Jessica, on that one. I will, maybe if you add in your email to the chat function, I can double check that one for you.
Cool. If there are any more questions, final call on questions, I guess. I think we've got everybody, but please, if I've missed you in the chat, please feel free to repeat your question.
I'm going to add my email address and number in the chat function. So if you have any follow-up questions or want to talk over your project timeline or budget, please feel free to email me or call me anytime.
We've had another question, Jess, from Kelly. Can you further explain how established creative or artists are being defined in this context? Does it just require more than 2 years of professional experience in the field?
We don't really have any other requirements for established artists. I think it really depends on your bio and the support material that you have. I think that will be able to provide us like a bit of an overview of where you are as an artist in your career.
And July has asked, will each applicant submitted need to have a mentor?
Not necessarily. It's really up to you if you want to engage with a mentor or engage with other professional development opportunities.
Cool. John has raised their hand. Cool. So just the question is, and we had variations on this question a little earlier on, but let's say you're applying for the solo work option of $750. How much of that amount can go towards paying yourself? Like, what is as an artist, what can you fee yourself?
It's really dependent on the project, I think, like what sort of funds you need to develop your project. And if you do have additional support coming in from elsewhere, if you want to talk about it a little bit more, I would suggest emailing me or calling me, and we can go over the budget. But I would suggest putting in a bit of funds to actually develop your project, whether that be like for the production or equipment or something like that. But yeah, it really does depend on whether you do have enough coming in from other sources as well.
Cool. Another question from Jasper. Should you be selected, will support like workshops or mentoring sessions be done in person or over Zoom in the future?
So this is really dependent on the next few weeks with this lockdown extension. We would like to think that by October we can do in-person workshops and mentoring sessions. We really do hope that we can get there, but we will also be offering online Zoom sessions as well, regardless of if we are doing in-person sessions. So both. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, we might wrap up if no one else has any other questions, but just to reiterate that we have extended the submission deadline to the 1st of September. So you have a little bit more time to work on your submission. And again, if you have any questions about your project, whether that be the project timeline or support material or the budget, feel free to give me a call or email me to arrange a time. We're always here to help. Thank you so much for coming to the information session today. Again, if you have any other questions, just feel free to reach out anytime. And good luck to everyone with the submissions.